If I'm hiding behind something, that's how I'm hiding out of fear. I'm hiding out of wanting to protect myself. Well, guess what? I trust myself enough to share now. And that is what vulnerability does. And that's me, but anybody can do that.
What happens when the uniform is put away for the final time, but the trauma stays? Welcome to the Glen Gilbert Connection, a new place where we discuss relationship wisdom for the seasoned man and woman. Today's guest is Glen Williams, a retired law enforcement officer who spent 26 years on the front line, only to find his toughest battles came after the badge. Glen faced PTSD, endured 2 divorces, and nearly lost himself before discovering the tools to rebuild his life from the inside out. Now, as the author of Bridging the Gap, he's helping others navigate trauma recovery, emotional resilience, and the power of communication. If you're a man who's ever felt broken, disconnected, or unsure how to move forward, or a woman who wants to understand the silent struggles men face, this episode is for you. Let's get into it. Glen, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate your time.
And thank you, Glenn. I appreciate being here.
Thank you. So walk us through your journey. What experiences or challenges or pivotal moments shaped the path that led to where you are today?
Well, as you said, I was an officer, a detective for 26 years. And during those years, I went through a lot of traumatic things. What I discovered during law enforcement is we deal with bad people or good people having a really bad day. There's not much good that occurs. And the things that we see are things that most people don't ever want to see in their life. And those experiences created PTSD for me over the 26 years. In fact, I did not really know I had PTSD until I was about a 24-year officer.
Ooh.
But I look back now with what I know, and I look at the behaviors that I portrayed that were related to PTSD and how they negatively affected my relationships. I was married to my first wife for 19 years, and she was worried about things at work. And so I quit sharing things from work because I didn't want her to worry. And that was the first brick in the wall by not sharing and shutting down. And over the years, that just built and built until there was such a wall that we didn't talk about anything at all. And the relationship was pretty much over. I look back now and I did not realize at the time, but there's a lot of behaviors related to PTSD. I would respond to my kids in anger, and then I'd catch myself, but it was too late. I'd already reacted. I didn't understand what I was doing and why I was doing that. I knew it wasn't what I wanted to do, but I was unable to control it at that time. I actually started thrill seeking. I looked at, and I didn't know that's what I was doing, but you like that adrenaline rush in PTSD. And I talked myself, I was in around 45, 50 foot chases and fights in my career. And as I look back, I talked myself into about 15 or 20 of those. Somebody would challenge and I'd react back.
Right.
And I spent extra time staying in shape so I wouldn't get beat because I knew things were going to happen. In fact, everybody knew something was going to happen when I came to work towards the end of my career. And it did. So those behaviors, and then even worse, I actually, again, thrill seeking, pushing the boundaries. I had an affair at the end of my first marriage, and nobody knew, but it was exciting. Somebody actually wanted to be with me. I wanted to be with them, and it was outside the bounds. So those are all kind of PTSD related. I wish I could blame it on PTSD, but I have to be accountable. And that's the biggest part of my journey I've learned is being self-accountable. I made those choices. And every day we go through, moment by moment, we're creatures of habit. So as we go through our days, we just do things like we normally do every day. Well, why aren't we looking at moment by moment, making conscious decisions in every moment? And if we do that, that'll make our lives a lot easier.
Right.
It's not easy. It's hard work to do that. But those are things that I have developed and I'm still working on, is that moment by moment choices and how it affected my life. If I had to make that same choice again about the affair, there's no way. No way. But at the time, that's what I did. And, what's the old saying, if I knew then what I know now?
Sure.
because I've been diagnosed with PTSD. I actually have a service dog. I have learned how to deal with a lot of these things. And even though sometimes I still get triggered, I've had a couple of experiences that blew me away for a few days. It took me 3 or 4 days to get over it. But now I know how to deal with them. And that's kind of the things I've learned. After my first marriage, I married again and married the gal that I had the affair with. And we were married for 13 years because I'm not a quitter. I'm not going to do everything I can to make it work. But that one was beyond my choice, and we ended up divorced again. And at that time, then I ended up spending 3 years up at my cabin by myself. And that's where I got back in touch with me. I was working. I had to get up at 4:30 in the morning, get to work by 6, 57 miles from work. I'd go get to work. I'd get off at 4. Hit drive-through restaurant on the way home for dinner, grab a burger or some garbage food, and then I'd get home, and then I'd make myself a couple drinks. And I was a good kid. It was only 2 drinks a night, but they were 34 ounces each.
Right.
And I was feeling no pain because I was having nightmares 3 and 4 times a week. And as I was having those nightmares, I just had to, when I was drinking a little bit, I didn't have the nightmares as often. But one day, after I'd been up there probably 10 months, 9 or 10 months, and I'm looking out the window over my sink, and there's deer walking through the aspen trees in the woods. And I'm going, wow, I haven't gone outside and experienced that for a while. And I saw my reflection in the mirror or in the window, and I kind of looked at myself thinking, the only one you're hurting by this idiotic behavior is you, because nobody else cares.
Right.
And that's when I suddenly realized how alone I was. But I also realized I needed to change what I was doing. And so I just made some small changes. I threw my gym clothes in my car. I was 16, 17 miles from work or from town. I knew once I got home, I wasn't going back down. So I'd stop every other day at the gym on the way home. And I started running and doing a few weights and getting back in shape again. And then I would come home and I'd made some home-cooked meals and started eating better. And my mentality started changing. I started going out for walks in the woods. And in fact, when it snowed, I had 8 feet of snow up there. I even bought snowshoes. My first experience was really humbling. I'm huffing, puffing, sweating, going, oh man, I'm not sure I can do this. And I looked back and I'd gone about 50 yards. I got up to where I was working through and hiking through the woods on snowshoes, and I was going 3, 4, or 5 miles eventually. But it took a little bit of work to get there, but it helped me set a goal to improve. And that kept my mind focused and off the garbage. I was able to get back in touch with the real me. I had let my job become my life. I'm a cop. I'm a cop. Well, who are you? I'm a cop. Okay. And then I kind of adjusted things and realized I work as an officer. I am not an officer.
Right.
It's not who I am. And I went through some trainings. I talked to a therapist, and that's one of my messages. You got to talk to somebody or it'll eat you alive, whether it be a friend, a spouse, a therapist, somebody. But when you have something traumatic going on, you got to get it out. Right. And that's where I actually started learning to get it out. And through that process, I actually used journaling. I started writing things down. And that's huge because it lets the mind know it's okay to let it out without having to tell somebody. Because telling somebody is scary.
Sure.
And so as I was doing that, I started sharing and just becoming part of me. And then I went through some other personal enhancement trainings where they assisted me in tearing the walls that I had built to protect myself. We as guys want to protect ourselves. And that's what our mind does. That's what it's designed for, is to protect us. And by protecting us, sometimes it holds us back because it's not really protecting us. It just doesn't want us to feel the pain. And sometimes pain is good. Okay, it's a learning opportunity. Just an example on that, when I wrote my book, I finished it in November, and I only had on the application into the publisher's application, I needed endorsements. And so I only had 2 endorsements. And my mind's telling me, they want 3, at least 3, you need another one, and these aren't good enough anyway. Who are these people? And that's what my mind was telling me. And I actually finally woke up one day in February, 5 months later, and I said, you know what? I learned a trick. It's called the countdown. It takes your mind 5 seconds to come up with an objection of why something won't work. And I went, I'm going to go finish this today. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. And I went down, got my laptop, typed for 20 minutes, submitted everything the way it was. That's on a Thursday. I got a call on Friday from the publisher. And he says, I want to meet with you on a Zoom call next week. We meet on Thursdays, decide whether they're accepting or not accepting a book. And he says, I want to fill you in on how things are going and give you a sample contract, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I had to work, so I set it on Wednesday. On Wednesday, that's when he told me all these things about all the processes, the possibilities, and the sample contract. And on Friday, I was out working out in my garage. I had that day off, and I get this call, but I missed it because I didn't have my phone with me. I get this message that says, oh, congratulations. I'm going to send you a real contract.
Okay. Like, good.
Yeah. So the mind was trying to protect me, but in reality, it held me back and delayed me 6 months from getting my book accepted. But those are some of the things I learned while I was up there at my cabin. And the trauma stuff, I'm down to 1 or 2 nightmares. I mean, and for me, being in nature is a huge healer. Physical activity is a huge healer.
100%.
And that's most guys. In fact, I went to marriage counseling once, and the therapist told my wife at the time, she says, he never talks. And she says, and I'm pacing the room and I'm talking as I'm pacing. And she says, you like to be physically active, don't you? I said, yeah. And you're talking now, aren't you? And she says, yeah. She says, she told my wife, you need to do something physical with him and he'll talk. So we jogged together, we rode bikes together, we did things like that together. And I opened up because it's easier for me when I'm active.
Right.
And I think there's a lot of guys that way.
I would agree.
But it still didn't work. We ended up divorced, but it takes 2 to tango, and we can only do the best we can.
Right.
And I realized that was before I realized that I could change me. I can't change anybody else. And so I get to accept what they are. And if it falls within my bounds, then great, we're friends or in a relationship. And if it doesn't fall, then I get to say, that's not going to work. Have a nice day.
So your memoir shares tools for recovering from trauma. What's one tool that made the biggest difference in your healing journey? And I'm going to throw a guess out there. It sounds like accountability, but I'll let you answer.
Yeah, I kind of got ahead of the game there.
No, you're great. No, it's good. I get it.
Accountability was huge, yes. And I had to be open and honest with myself.
Yes.
And if I can't be open and honest with myself, how can I be open and honest with anybody else?
Right.
And so that was a big step. I had some other minor tools that really helped me out, like say being in nature is a big one for me. Being physically active is big. But then I tried some outside the box things, like when I was a cop, if I heard about a drum circle, that's a bunch of hippies with smoking dope and around a bonfire beating on drums. Well, I found out about shaman-led healing drum circles, and I start participating in some of those. Tibetan bowls, which are brass bowls made in Tibet by the monks, and they make tones. That's my favorite.
Yeah,
I go into a trance when I do those.
Yeah, there's something about the frequency with those that are supposed to be very soothing. Yeah,
and it's very healing. And I've actually had visions from it that have actually come to pass. Like I saw these red rocks, and I had no clue where it was at or anything. And when my current wife, I said, "What do you think about southern Utah or Arizona?" And she says, "Why?" And I said, "Well, because I have this vision of red rocks. We're going to be where there's red rocks." She goes, "Well, what do you think about Hurricane, Utah?" I said, "Don't even know where that is." She says, "I have a lot there." We went down on that lot, stood there, and in the backyard were those red rocks.
Huh.
Yeah. And we built a house there and stuff. We don't have it now because 10 years ago was a little early. If it was now, we'd still be there. But in our lives together, it was a little early. But there they were. and it was just amazing to me. But those tones and those vibrations allow you to get in touch with the energy within yourself.
Right.
And that to me is extremely healing. And those are three or four of the main ones that I have that have helped me come to realizations.
Nice. I was going to just say the Red Rocks. Can't remember the comedian's name, but he's always like, "There's your sign."
Healing ball.
There you go. There you go. There's your sign. You've experienced 2 divorces linked to trauma exposure. How do you help men understand the emotional toll trauma can take on relationships?
That's, I actually am in a documentary called "Is There Something Going On at Home?" And it's about how the trauma at work affects our families. And I have seen relationships completely destroyed because guys refuse to talk. Guys just won't acknowledge that there's an issue. Females too, all female officers have the same issues. And in law enforcement, the divorce rate's 75%. Oh, wow. It's high.
Right.
If you go to the medical field, same thing, a very high divorce rate because they see all kinds of trauma also.
Sure.
And if we don't share those things, that's what I'm grateful for now as my wife now. We have 0 secrets. She knows everything about it. The journaling actually started turning into my book. And
Nice.
as I was writing my book, she'd tell me, "Read me what you wrote today." I'm not sure you really want to
Whoa.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So I would share it with her. And so she knows everything. I have all the things, not all of them, but a great majority of the things that created trauma in my life and how I didn't deal with it back then and the problems it caused. And then I talk about how I would do it differently now. Right. But one of the biggest things is we have no secrets whatsoever. In fact, communication is key. And I'm learning to ask a lot of clarifying questions. She tells me one day down there at the house in Hurricane, she says, "Why don't you go do something for a while?" So what did I do? I'm going, okay. And I'm driving around in my truck for 3 hours trying to figure out what I did wrong. I couldn't figure out what I did. And I came back 3 hours later and I'm just devastated. This is a new relationship. And I'm thinking, what am I doing wrong? Are we getting divorced? I mean, I have that internal fear. Are we going to get divorced? This is barely starting and it scared the hell out of me. And I came back and I said, and I was open. I said, "What did I do wrong?" And she looked at me. She goes, "Oh, no, you didn't do anything." She says, "I just re-energize when I'm alone. And I needed some alone time." Oh, okay. Yeah. So it had nothing to do with what I did with what I had done. It just, she needed some time to recharge.
Sure.
And now we fixed that. She says, "Why don't you go golf? Or go fishing, or maybe go shooting, find something you like to do and do. I just need some time." And so now we've clarified that situation, but we only clarified it through asking questions and good communication.
Sure. No, that makes sense. Like, babe, I could have saved 3 hours of driving and gas, but that's great. You guys were able to get to that point of where you have an understanding of what's going on. No,
yeah.
That's great.
And so guys, don't be afraid to ask questions.
Right.
Okay. And don't always blame yourself because it's not always something you did.
Yeah.
Perceptions are different. What's that book, Men Are From Venus, Women From Mars or something like that?
Yeah.
Amen. There are differences in the way we communicate and the way we perceive things. Right. And the only way we can clarify those is open, honest communication.
100%. This is really a great segue. My next question, it's about communication. Your book is titled Bridging the Gap. So what role does communication play in healing after traumatic events?
Our actions after traumatic events, oftentimes we're not aware of what we do, or we're somewhat aware, but we don't really understand why we're doing it. Mm-hmm. And the only way we're going to fix that and bridge the gaps that we have created in our lives is with good, open, honest communication. And that's the format of what I talk about most of the time. I mean, there's other small nuances and things like that, but generally it comes down to, I don't hide anything now. My wife tells me I'm too open. And I asked her once, I said, well, would you rather me not be open? She goes, oh, absolutely not. I like you the way you are.
Right. Right.
And, but I do share too much sometimes. But that's okay. And what I've discovered when I teach course that I teach is by being open and being honest and being vulnerable, that is the highest compliments I get from my course. Mm-hmm. And I get that very often because they can see I'm not hiding anything.
Right.
And that's the way, if we live our lives with our family that way, it's an amazing life.
Right.
It's truly amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. You write about the walls you built to survive trauma, walls that ultimately cost you connection and intimacy. What did those walls look like in your day-to-day relationships, and how did you begin to dismantle them without losing your sense of safety?
The first wall that I had, and I didn't even realize I was doing it, was arrogance. I put on this aura around me of being better and too good for everybody else. And I did that subconsciously to keep people away from me,
sure,
to protect myself. There goes the mind again. And I didn't even know I was doing it. I found that out the hard way when I came back. First day at work after getting out of the academy, my training officer put me in this room, and it was a interview interrogation room. I didn't know that at the time, and put me in the dark there in the suspect chair and says, you've got this reputation around here as a cocky, arrogant know-it-all, and I'm going to change that. And it just went downhill from there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But my mind, I'm going, I haven't even been here for 7 months. I've been in the academy. Who did I piss off? And I couldn't figure out what I'd done. And then I found out later, 20 years later, when I retired, they gave me paperwork from the academy, and one of my academy mates had said that as a comment about me.
Interesting.
And I kind of had to laugh. At that time, I was still not healed because I worked for 6 more years after that with another department, and I hadn't been diagnosed. I hadn't figured things out yet. But now as I look back, I realize that's how I lived my life at that time. My first wife saw me out playing basketball, and I'm ultra competitive. My father was a coach. I played football, wrestled, played baseball. I rodeoed. I mean, anything I did, I was going to be the best. Right. And playing basketball was the same way, even though I was not very good at it. In fact, I was so bad, my dad cut me from the team when I was in 9th grade. But I was still out there competitive, and she thought I would never, ever look at her. Mm. And yet, 4 years later, we ended up getting married. Mm-hmm. But I had that aura around me, and I didn't even know it. After that was said, and it took a few years after that for me to really realize how bad it was. And in reality, I wasn't arrogant and I wasn't cocky, but it protected me from people my mind said were threats or possible threats. And threats could be, hurting me emotionally, hurting me physically, hurting me any way that the mind wants to protect me. Mm-hmm. And that's not the case at all. Once going through, after my 3 years at the cabin, I finally realized the mind is a great computer. Mm-hmm. It's there to protect you. And it doesn't always do a great job of that. You got to come from the heart, because the heart knows the truth. Mm-hmm. And it's never wrong. And if you follow that, it's called a gut instinct sometimes, or follow your gut feeling. That's your heart telling you what the truth is.
Yeah, I would agree with it. Your mind is obviously there to protect you as best as it can. And I came upon this realization that the things that you do as a child to protect yourself don't always equate to having good relationships as an adult, but that's just where we feel the most comfortable. It's where we're safe. It's, it's the whole quote unquote, this is the safe space I feel in. And so it may not be, I don't know. I don't want to say toxic, but we don't know any better. If you've been sleeping on a bed of rocks for your entire life, how do you know there's like a bed of feathers out there? It's like you don't until someone's like, you know what, there's something else you can use over here. There's another way, right down the street. I'm like, no, this is too comfortable. It's like, it's really not. It's really not.
Yeah. If you like it hard.
Yeah. Why do you think mental health is still a taboo topic in trauma-exposed professions like law enforcement? And how can we change that?
Again, I think it's creatures of habit a lot. Oh, this is the way we've always done it. I know when I started and I was having problems back a long time ago, if I would have wanted to talk with a therapist, they would have said, yeah, thanks, but see you later. And they would have got rid of me for not being able to do my duty properly. In reality, I would have been able to do my duty better if I had gotten the help I needed.
Right.
It was, don't talk about it, it doesn't exist. And that's changing, but it hasn't changed yet. I know there are individual departments that I have visited that are doing awesome. And they're implementing things to look out for their officers' wellness. And this is just not for officers, guys in general. I mean, we're not that different. I don't care what you do for a living. We're guys. And I can generally peg, if I talk to some people in law enforcement for a few minutes, I can generally peg about where they are in their career just by the conversation. Oh yeah, he's about a 4-year officer and he's about ready to retire. And just by the things they say. And as I've been in other businesses also, it's not that different. It's not that different. You can tell the older guys that are a little more jaded and they don't hide it. And a lot of guys, get to the point, well, I'm going to be gone, so do what you want to do. I don't care anymore. And they're not afraid to say stuff. And that's not always the best. But yeah, I think I got off topic. Sorry.
No, it's okay. Just, we're talking about why, I guess, talking about mental health and going to therapists is taboo. And it sounds like you're kind of breaking those barriers down a little bit. You're trying to, help to have there's an understanding out there that it actually is a benefit rather than being something that's taboo.
It is. And for so many years, it's like vulnerability. For so many years, it was looked at as a weakness, not years, decades.
Right. Agreed.
It's looked at as a weakness, when in reality, by talking about it, makes it a strength because now you've overcome it.
Right.
And as you overcome it, then you're stronger.
100%. After retiring from the police force, how did you begin to rebuild your identity outside of the badge?
Guys, when you're ready to retire, find a purpose. Okay? Find a purpose, because if you don't, you're going to flounder. And so what I did, I suddenly looked back at my career, and when I started writing my book, well, I actually wrote a class first. I just started writing. For some reason, it just came out. And so that's why I know it's right, because I didn't think about it much. It just came out. And then I wrote my book, and that solidified things. If I can go through my purposes, if I can help somebody not make the stupid mistakes I made, then we all win. And so that's my message, is to go out and talk, make sure it's open, and don't be afraid to be vulnerable in a real short nut case.
Right.
But yeah, that's how I kind of started my journey. So now my message to the guys that are getting ready to retire is find something you want to do. And they all say, oh, I'm going to go golf, or I'm going to go fish, or that's what I'm going to do. And I tell them, you know what, you're going to do that for about 6 months and you'll be bored out of your skull. Especially cops, because we're mostly type A personalities. We're mostly go-getters. And calming down, that's one of the things PTSD is related, is you keep active so you don't have to think about stuff.
Sure.
And the minute you slow down, you start thinking about stuff, it starts ripping you apart.
Yep.
And that's what I've noticed. Even I've had a hard time slowing down. But I finally have slowly worked my way out where after November of this year, all I'm doing is teaching my course whenever I can and writing books. I have another book that's in editing, and I found out I like to write, and I'm actually not bad.
Good for you.
So
yeah, no, that's great.
You have to admit, it's not humble to say I'm good, but guess what? I'm pretty good. Mm-hmm. And that's not bragging. I'll let the facts speak for themselves.
Right.
And those are things that, as guys in trauma, we've got to work our way through. First off, again, self-accountability. That's one of the biggest things to get over trauma. You got to look at what happened, what it caused, what it's doing, and then what can I do to change that. And even today, like a couple of years ago, I was at the Denver airport, and I had my service dog with me and he was misbehaving. So I didn't have all my tools with him because packing and the baggage got all messed up. And so I only had his collar and I could submit him to get his attention. And so he was acting up. I put him down on the ground and submitted him like my trainer taught me. And some gal came running, yelling and screaming about me abusing my dog. And she came up so loud and so threatening, I swung my arm around, thought I was being attacked, and yelled, "Get!" And I went cop mode. Get back.
Right.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I didn't hit her, but she was so loud that my wife was in the restroom and heard her. And came out. And my wife is Miss Calm. I mean, she's Miss Calm. And this gal was just going off and going off. And then she starts, so, well, I train service dogs. Yeah, whatever. No, you don't. But nice claim. But all of a sudden I had 20 or 30 people around me. And everything went gray. And then it went black. And I could see a tunnel vision ahead of me. And that's all I could see. And I've never had this happen before in my life. And I got up and started walking off. And I've been to the Denver airport 7, 8, 9 times. I knew where everything was. I was trying to find the dog room for my dog. I wandered around lost for an hour, hour and a half. I don't know how long. And I finally got him in the room. And then I stand in the middle of the open area and I'm looking at the escalators. I'm trying to figure out where the baggage claim was and stuff. And I mean, I was messed up. I got down to the baggage claim and the only person there on our plane is my wife. Everyone else is gone. And she's mad at me. And I can't explain what happened. I did not understand what happened. I had nightmares 4 nights in a row after that. And I mean bad ones. I mean, I woke up one night banging my knuckles on the wall because I was swinging in a fight. I'm glad I didn't hit my wife. But that's when I finally started putting my tools to use. I went up in the mountains and got in nature, and I worked physically hard, and finally got up to the top of the mountain where I could see 3 valleys, and it was like, okay. And I got back down, and I didn't have any nightmares after that for a couple of months.
Right.
But use the tools that work for you. And I've gotten completely off topic again, but those are trauma with our families. Luckily, I was able to talk more openly and clearly with my wife because I couldn't at the moment because I just didn't understand it at all.
Sure.
It never happened. But now we've talked about it, we've worked it out, and things are cool. That was actually 2 years ago now. So we just don't know what's going to happen, and we don't know how it's going to affect us. I mean, because I know my heart rate was up, and I was in a confrontation, and I don't deal with those sometimes very well unless I can get physical.
Understood.
Yeah. But I didn't get physical. We were good.
Right. Right. You're able to walk away without it having a bigger incident. Yeah.
Yeah. It turned out she called security on me. I talked to the police on her. And it all kind of got meshed out, and I actually wrote a letter to her employer because she was threatening to keep me off my airplane, which I had to laugh because I just got off my airplane.
Right. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what does resilience mean to you, and how can men cultivate it without suppressing their emotions?
Resilience means working through things. If you suppress your emotions, you're not working through things. So you've got to, I cry a lot now, which I never cried before. I mean, I never showed emotions whatsoever, especially on the job.
Right.
Because, and there's times, one of the things that really helped, and this is a thing that really helped me through to a previous question. I was an 18-year officer, and I had to search for a missing child.
Oh.
And when we found him, 3 years old, he was in a pond or in a fountain, unconscious. I pulled him out and did CPR and did everything I could. And when we turned him over to fire and they took him to the primary children's hospital, I couldn't save him. He didn't make it.
Oh.
And
that's heavy. Yeah, that's heavy.
Yeah. I didn't know what to do. I mean, I couldn't save him. But the first time in my career, I had a good leader. My lieutenant came over and looked at me, puts his arm around me, says, "Are you okay, brother?" And that was the first time in my career that anybody had ever asked me if I was 18 years.
Mhm.
18 years. And that was the first time anybody had ever asked me if I was okay. He says, you know what? And for the first time in my career, I was honest. I said, no, I'm not. And he says, you know what? Go take care of yourself. And then when you're done, come on back to the office and get your report and stuff done. So I found a church parking lot backed up against the wall so nobody could get behind me, and sat there and cried my eyes out for about an hour.
Oh, yeah.
And then I went back to the office and worked on the report. I never told my wife about that. I
Mm.
never told her about that. I just said it was a bad day. That's all I said. And now I would rephrase. In fact, that's one of the things my book is about. Is when I was in the academy, they told us, well, make sure and keep communication opens with your spouse so you don't get divorced. They talked about, had our spouses come in and had them talk about how the divorce rate's really high. And then their final thing was just keep things open and communication open so you don't get divorced. And we all walked out of the room going, and, well, I came up with the and. It took me 20 years. But I came up with the and that's one of the things in my book is how do we break down a traumatic incident and make it safe to share with somebody? Because I don't need to share the blood and the guts. I get to share the things that scared me, the things that frightened me, and how they made me feel. Or when I took the bad guy down and solved the issue, how did it make me feel? I don't have to get into all the nuts and bolts. And that's what I share in a lot of my classes now is how to share those things openly. And I'm not hiding anything. I'm just not telling about the blood and guts part of it.
Wow.
And so guys, we can do that. I mean, we can share the things that are bothering us without getting into all the fine sand details. But we can share the rocks and the pebbles and still keep that open and not build those walls that communication builds.
What was it was a lieutenant that came up to you
Yeah.
and asked you?
Yeah. And he's a friend of mine still to this day.
Absolutely. 100%. That's really amazing. You're now happily married. What have you learned about building healthy relationships after trauma?
Get it out.
Just kidding.
I mean, it's the same message. Get it out.
Right.
And don't have any secrets. I mean, little white lies turn into darker lies. And if you tell a little white lie, you're going to have to tell other lies to keep it a little white lie. And that just builds and builds. That's like, say, my wife and I, we have zero secrets. And if I'm feeling something, I tell her. And if she's feeling something, she tells me. And sometimes she'll read my face because I don't hide anything anymore. I mean, as a detective doing interviews, I could hide stuff really well.
Yep.
You know, I'm sitting there agreeing with a felon. Oh, yeah, I might do something like that. Bull, I wouldn't do something like that. But,
Right.
you know, building that rapport
Right.
with my wife, I'm just completely 100% open and honest. I mean, why not?
Right.
We're living together. Between us, my wife is so gracious. My first wife passed away shortly after we were divorced.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Our communication was so bad at the time. She had cancer and didn't tell me.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Okay.
Yeah. And 2 years after we were divorced, she passed away from cancer.
Oh,
My wife now is such a gracious lady that my kids actually started calling her mom. Yeah. And so because of that, she's just so open, and I get to be open with her. And we have that trust. And that it took a while, but we've got that trust. And we started our relationship by talking. We talked on the phone for 3 weeks before we ever met
oh, wow.
in person.
Right.
I met her online, okay,
Of course.
but we talked
Yeah.
on the phone. And like one night, she says, "Don't you have to get up at 3:30 for work?" I said, "Yeah." "Don't you think you should get some sleep?" And I said, "What?" And then she goes, "It's 1 o'clock." And we've been talking since 8 o'clock at night.
Wow.
So five hours, and just talking about stuff.
Right.
After we started dating, I had shoulder surgery, rotator cuff, and the rehab wasn't going well. And so I'd come over to her place and she'd twist my arm around and do the stuff. But while we were doing that and she was doing that, she'd say, "Tell me a story." And I would share experiences and things that happened at work or whatever. And we just kept everything open from that on, and even to this day, that's just the way we are. And if you can do that with your spouse, if you can't do that with your spouse, you need to learn to trust her or him. Both. If you don't trust them to share stuff, then you might want to start looking at things. And the best place to start is look within yourself.
Yeah.
Trust, because many times we're trying to protect us when in reality we're hurting ourselves.
Right. It sounds like she helped you get to a point of where you became really comfortable with your communications. Almost like it sounded like you were working on it, and then she added to it and gave you some synergy with being able to communicate actually between both of you, just to say, just tell me a story while I'm doing some PT on you, right? And that's a really, I think, great way to just start building that trust with a spouse. Just start telling me a story, and you get comfortable talking about history, and then you get comfortable talking about experiences, and then you can get comfortable about talking about maybe experiences that weren't that great. And you just have that understanding can just kind of, then that trust can always kind of build and grow and go from there. That just sounds wonderful.
Well, part of it started when I was going through the training to tear myself down and rebuild myself.
Yep.
And once I went through that, I started noticing things that I had not noticed before. And so I noticed something that in one of her pictures, and I asked her about it. And it was a dragonfly. And the dragonfly stands for being in the moment, because the dragonfly's life is very short. I mean, it's like hours.
Oh, I didn't know. Okay.
Yeah. And so we started talking about being in the moment. And I would have never been able to talk about being in the moment if I hadn't gone through the trainings and torn myself down and the things that I learned over that year and a half part of that I was up at the cabin. And because I was able to do that and get back in touch with me, then I could actually talk about that. Because in the past, I know she would have gone out with me 2 or 3 times. He's a nice guy, but.
Right.
And, because I've been a nice guy, but I wasn't open enough to be me.
Of course.
Yeah. And now that I'm me, we just get along phenomenally.
Well, when you're shut down for so long and you've learned to suppress it and put up walls for so long, to really feel comfortable to sit and be with yourself in a state of comfort, that's not going to come easy. That's going to take a little while.
It's going to take some work, but guess what? Do it, guys and gals, because it is so worth it to have an open, honest relationship. And that's what it's just amazing. I'm happy.
Yeah, you could. Yeah, you're always smiling, man. You're always smiling. If this conversation with Glen Williams is stirring something in you, don't just keep listening, lean in. Glen's work with Bridging the Gap is transforming how we understand trauma, accountability, and healing, especially for those in high-risk roles like law enforcement. Visit GDUB that's one word, GDUB author.com to explore his keynote, seminar, and course offerings. Whether you're rebuilding after personal loss or seeking tools to reconnect with your community, Glen's curriculum is a lifeline. And if you're finding value in this dialogue, like, subscribe, and share this episode with someone who needs it. Healing starts with conversation, and you can be the spark. Let's continue. So you've spoken about the impact of suicide in trauma-exposed professions. What can we do to better support those at risk?
Realize when you deal with people on the street in today's world, it's really crazy out there, especially for law enforcement, because suddenly they're the bad guys. They're not bad guys. They're people just like you, just like me, and just like any of us out there doing a job. Do they make mistakes? Oh, absolutely. Everybody does. But are they out there trying to cause problems? No. The majority are out there to make the communities better, and keep that in mind, and just be a little open-minded, and go up and say hi and tell one of them thank you once in a while, or just say hi and be, and be a person, and they'll be a person right back at you.
In Bridging the Gap, you emphasize the power of reframing traumatic events so they can be shared safely. Can you walk us through a moment where reframing changed the trajectory of the relationship or helped you reclaim your voice?
When I first started, I didn't want to share anything But once I realized I needed to get some of the things out, and I started with my wife now, actually, rather than sharing the blood and guts. For example, one night I was sitting outside. I got called to a house where a guy had taken a shot at his wife in another city with a handgun. And she ran home to our city with her family. And that wanted their protection, wanted our protection. Well, they were all hard, and they asked us to protect her, but would not let us in the house. So I ended up sitting on the curb in my car out that night in case he came back. And he did come back once before. We chased him, and he got away. And then later that night, though, he parked 3 or 4 blocks away and snuck through backyards. Oh. Came in the back window where he used to sneak in to see her. And while she was laying in bed with her 2-year-old son in her arms, he shot her in the forehead.
Oh, my God.
It was a .22 caliber, so I could not hear the shot outside where I was sitting. Suddenly, a 12-year-old boy came running out, her little brother. Hey, shooting everybody, shooting everybody. And I went through the door, screaming on my radio on the way in, shots fired at the domestic house because everybody knew where I was at. And I fully expected to get shot when I went through that door. But as I went through the door, busted it open, there were 3 guys in a small living room area fighting. Mom and Dad were off to the left. And I realized it was 2 brothers and 1 guy. And I kind of quickly assumed who the bad guy was and grabbed him, threw him down, and got cuffs on him and got everything. Now I'm scanning around because I'm in a house full of angry gang members, and I can't find the gun. Oh. I mean, I can't find the gun. So I got up, I said, I need to check on your sister, and they started kicking him, and I had to get back down because now I'm responsible for him, and I had to stop him. And I pointed at one of the guys, and I said, you're in charge. If anybody kicks him, you're responsible. I need to check on your sister, and I can't do it if you're going to be beating him up. I went up, and first it was up 4 steps and first door on the right, and went in to look, and she had a bullet hole right here, blood trickling down her cheek. And I felt for a pulse, and I couldn't find one, but I'm not medical, so I can't pronounce her dead. So I knew fire was on the way, and so I kind of went back downstairs and just tried to maintain calm. And I'm by myself, and I know everybody else is on the way, but I have no clue how long they're going to take. And it was nerve-wracking. Anyway, they finally got there. They went and pronounced her dead. My backup got there, and they took me outside, and I was able to get a breath of fresh air. And they actually found the gun. It had been kicked underneath some floor-length curtains against the front wall. Mm-hmm. And so everything was okay. I would share that. I would leave out probably the part with the bullet hole and things like that. I'm open about it now. I don't care. But I would probably share that as I was waiting outside. When the young man came out, I went running in the door. I was able to take the bad guy into custody. And once I was sure he was okay and was not going to be harmed, I went up to check on the victim. And unfortunately, she was not going to make it. And so I would kind of generalize it a little bit, but that's pretty much the story. I would talk about the fight, and then I would share how I felt. And as I shared that, I kind of did that because I kind of do it naturally now. Like I say, I was scared as all get out going through that door. I seriously thought I was going to get shot. But once I got in there, the adrenaline was pumping, and I was able to jump into all 3 and weed him out and figure out who the bad guy was and throw him down and put handcuffs on him. And that's pretty much how I would share it now. The way I did with you, although I would leave a little bit of the blood part out of it because some people just can't handle that.
Yeah, that's heavy. As a communications coach, what's one breakthrough you've seen in a client that affirmed your mission?
I was in a class one day, and there was an older officer sitting in the back, and this was actually kind of a failure, but it was progress. And he had tears coming out, streaming down his face as we were talking about some traumatic incident, and he he looked up at me and says, I can't do this. And it was a group, there was a group, so I couldn't really drill in. But he says, I just can't do this. And he put it down and he quit. And so he put the wall back up. But that wall had come from here down to here. Right. And then when he put it back up, it was up here. But it was, so there was progress. And that's one of the ones that I will never, ever forget. I wish I could have gotten some more personal time with him, which I was just not able to do with his schedule. We're in different states and things. But that's, I saw the breakthrough. But like most guys, all of a sudden that mind said, no, I don't want to do this. And he bottled it all back up. But he got some of it out. So it was a start. And so with that start, I know there's going to be more progress.
Right. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's easy to go back to those old habits, but
yeah,
you got in a little bit. That's all it kind of takes to start the progress, right? To start the whole journey.
Crack is there.
The crack is there. You've shown incredible vulnerability by sharing your story. Why is vulnerability a strength, especially for men?
Because I know it's okay now.
Mm-hmm.
By being vulnerable, it's not a weakness because, if I'm hiding behind something, that's how I'm hiding out of fear. I'm hiding out of wanting to protect myself. Well, guess what? I trust myself enough to share now. And that is what vulnerability does. And that's me, but anybody can do that. Again, you're going to have to be, you don't want to just spew everything out all over the world, but to those that I know that I trust, and then that actually helps build things and strengthens things more. People know I'm not going to tell you any BS stories. I'm not going to lie to you. When I say it, that's just what it is. Mm-hmm. And I did that because I was vulnerable. And by being vulnerable, I get to address the things that hurt me. And by addressing those, then that makes me stronger also.
How did writing your memoir help you rediscover your purpose? And how can others do the same?
That is a tough question. It helped me because it turned into the training that I do, and it supports the training that I do. And by doing that and going through, I have found over the years that if I want to be really good at something, if I train it, I get way better.
Yes.
And so that has helped strengthen me even more and more. And that's become who I am now. No, it's become what I do now, not who I am, because I am who I am. And it's allowed me to do that with openness, honesty, and the vulnerability. When I teach a class, and I teach a law enforcement class, I have an 8-hour training course that I do. And I've done it for medical people also, and other people that are in traumatic professions, and I have to adjust it for them, for their profession. But as I share some of the experiences and the things that I learned, they realize that by being vulnerable, they realize that I am not BSing them. They realize that I've been through it. And I can assist them in getting through it too. And I can't do it for them. They can't do it for me. But we can assist each other in getting through it together.
What role does peer support play in recovery, and how can men create safe spaces to talk?
Oh, peer support can be huge if it's done properly. It can be huge. And I know I have heard of men's groups, and I'm not familiar with any in my area here, but I have heard of men's groups where they meet once a month and they get together and they talk about their relationships and things. And guys, for the most part, we kind of are on the same page. I mean, there's guys that can be a completely different profession, completely different income level. I mean, I don't care if you're a millionaire or if you're dirt poor, the emotions and feelings are the same. And as we talk about things, there's a lot of commonalities there. And a lot of those commonalities come from being guys. And ladies, same thing on your end, because the perceptions are different. But that's one of the things we get to realize is just because I see the world this way doesn't mean that's the way it really is. It's based on my background and all these things that have happened to me in the past and how I see things. And just because I see it this way, my wife doesn't necessarily see it that way. In fact, we're total opposites on some areas. in our lives. And I'm surprised we're even together on some of those areas. But we've had to kind of come to a construction where, okay, some things we just don't really talk much about. We'll mention a little bit, but not in depth because there's too much controversy. Politics, basically.
Sure. Sure.
But I find out that I actually agree with her on 85-90% of stuff.
That's pretty
And if
good.
we're all opposite on one area and we agree on 85-90%, what are we doing?
Exactly.
So peer support can be similar. You don't have to agree with everybody, but you can get background. You can talk. And as they open up, they might say something that sparks something in you. And you might say something that sparks something in them. And then it opens up a whole new area. And then as you find out all these commonalities and things that go, oh, wow, okay, he's going through similar than what I'm going through. It's not the same, but it's similar. Then how do we work through this? And you can come up with solutions together. And it's like when I was an officer, I have one set of eyes. I can only see so much of my area. I work that area 10 hours a day and I can only see so much. But in community-oriented policing, I developed relationships with citizens. And all of a sudden now, instead of one set of eyes, I've got 100 set of eyes who are willing to call me and let me know something's happening. And it's the same thing in relationships and in peer support. Guys got a different perspective that might help you understand where the problem you're having is coming from, whether it be you or from somebody else. So peer support is very important. If you can get it, man, use it.
Agreed.
And it's good
100%.
to have good friends.
Yeah. Yeah. You always have that inner circle,
Yeah.
but it doesn't hurt to get a few more people that could join that inner circle.
And they might be that secondary circle, but they're going to have points of view also.
Right. No, I agree with you 100%. You've reinvented yourself as an author and speaker. What advice do you have for men who feel stuck and want to start over?
Start getting in touch with yourself first.
Right.
Because you're not going to start anything over unless you break the old habits. And being creatures of habit that's who people are. We as people are creatures of habit, and not all of them are good. So start getting out of some of those habits. Take a look. I mean, I never thought I was very creative, but now I found out I like writing. I'm actually pretty good at it. And I actually got into photography the last couple months. And so my wife and I are going to go take a photography class. Well, now she worked for photographers and she edited film. So she's very creative. And her pictures always turn out way better than mine. But that's because she knows how to edit them.
Right.
But even she said the other day, she was looking at some of the pictures I took and she goes, "You're getting it." Because I was starting to frame them differently than I had a year ago. A year ago, I was like, and now it's like, oh yeah, a third here. Yeah, okay, there we go. That's cool. And so continually learning. And experiential learning. And if you can find something creative, find it. That will help broaden your mind. Believe it or not, I love woodworking, but I do real good rough work. My wife, when we get together, she's teaching me that I got to take the time to do the sanding and the finish work and the stuff like that. And the stuff we do together is amazing. The stuff I put the rough together, then she does all the finish stuff. And or she convinces me to.
Right. No, I follow you. Yeah.
But it turns out amazing. Like one time up my cabin, I had my old family oak table out in the shed, and I had a table in the kitchen. And she says, "Bring your old oak table in here." I said, "What am I going to do with that?" She goes, "Cut it in half." I said, "What? It's a perfectly good table. Why am I going to cut it in half?" I had an A-frame. And she says, "Trust me." And I kind of went, okay. And I cut it in half. And then we went up. I had about an 8-foot wide area that was about 20 feet long. And on one side of it, she had me bolt that half table into the leaning roof. And on the other side, the same thing. And now I had 2 desks.
Nice.
And that turned into an office area. I didn't see that.
Right. Nice.
But she did. And so I've learned to trust her vision because it always turns out really good. But, that's part of that creative thing that I didn't have. And so, yeah, just trust yourself, number one. If you don't trust yourself, listen to somebody else and trust them a little bit, and you'll be amazed what happens. And that's what life's just fun now, because I never know what's going to happen. I just never know where we're going.
Like I said earlier, whenever you talk about your wife, you're always smiling. You're always just smiling. That's great. What legacy do you hope to leave through your book and coaching? And how can men think about their own impact beyond their careers?
Your biggest impact, I'll tell you what, career, awesome. But the day you're gone, you're replaced and nobody's going to remember you.
Yeah.
The biggest impact is going to be on your family. It's going to be on your family. And the only people that'll be there 100% to back you are your family.
Right.
So put them first. I'm going to tell you that right now. And that will be your legacy. It took me a while to rebuild mine. Now I'm very close with all of my kids, and they're all over the country. I've got every time zone covered. But we talk every week, at least once a week. And when I'm on the phone with the grandkids, I know that's a 4-hour call. But I give them the time that I did not in the past. So build that part of your legacy, because when people go to my funeral, it's going to be a wild party.
Okay.
Celebration. But the ones that will be there that mean the most are my family.
Nice.
And my kids and my grandkids. And so that's your legacy. Again, start with reconstructing yourself if you need to. And only you can make that decision, because nobody can do it for you. I had no clue. And most guys don't, until I got really slapped upside the head thinking, okay, I'm a 2-time loser. And that's how I felt. I'm a 2-time loser. I can't keep a marriage. And then I got looking at, okay, what's the common factor? That was me. What can I change? Now, can I blame things on both my ex-wives? Oh, absolutely. But that's the blame game. I got to change what I did and how I conducted myself. And because I changed who I am, I have a wonderful relationship with a wonderful lady now. And if I hadn't changed, it would have been a nice guy, but see ya.
Right.
So change yourself, become who you are and who you want to be. And then the world will open up and it'll be amazing, even more so than it may be now.
No, that's incredible. I was going to say, before we wrap up, any final thoughts you'd like to add? I mean, we went through so much today, Glen, and before your final, I just want to tell you, thank you for opening up and being vulnerable and telling your stories. It does not go unnoticed. And I think you're doing some incredible work and you're helping a lot of people. So I appreciate you. So anyway, some final thoughts. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, don't be afraid to look inside.
Right.
That's the only way you're going to fix yourself and things, because nobody's going to do it for you. And when you do that, don't be afraid of what you see. Take the strengths and keep them going, and take the things that you see that aren't, and build them into strengths. I never talked, and now you can't shut me up.
I know. And you can't stop smiling, man, especially talking about your wife. That's fantastic.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm a lucky guy.
Yeah. No, that's great. And finally, let's just revisit like where people can find you.
Okay. www.gdubauthor.com. I'm on LinkedIn under my name. I'm on Facebook under my name. GDub Author on the other websites. I don't remember what they are now. X and whatever it is. Instagram, that was the other one. My book is on Amazon, and I urge you guys, if you're in a traumatic business or even not, take a look at the documentary on Amazon, Is There Something Going On at Home? It's like $2.99. It's 45 minutes, and it talks about how trauma at work affects families, and it's an amazing. We actually won a bunch of awards. I have no clue how I ended up being involved in it. I had some good people that saw something that I didn't see. And take a look at that, and you'll be amazed. Like I say, if you do my book, please give me an honest review. Okay? There
you go.
That's all I ask. I've had some others on there that weren't quite so honest, but that was their choice. And
well, I congratulate you on all of your success, Glen. Well done. Well done.
Thank you.
Glen's mission to help others bridges the gap between trauma and recovery. His story reminds us that healing isn't linear, but it is possible. For everyone listening, if you're carrying invisible wounds, questioning your identity, or searching for purpose after pain, know that you're not alone. Pick up Glen's book, Bridging the Gap, follow his journey, and start your own. And don't forget, like, comment, and subscribe to the Glen Gilbert Connection for more conversations that challenge, uplift, and connect. Until next time, stay grounded, stay open, and keep building the life you were meant to live. Thank you, Glen, for your time. I really appreciate it.